everyone. Today we have a very special guest, an AI entrepreneur who will shed some light on a fascinating world of artificial intelligence. We'll be delving into a topic of AI uncovered, overcoming obstacles in building intelligent projects. Stay tuned for a thought-provoking discussion with our guest. Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Mazor Kario, product design and AI expert, and I'll be your host. And I have a very, very special guest. Hi, Raviv.
Hi, Adi. Pleasure to be here.
So happy that you're here. Raviv Yatom is an AI entrepreneur and co-founder of Amphorica. And we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join the discussion and ask questions. And before we start with the real questions, I want you just to introduce like how did you become an AI entrepreneur? Why that direction and this topic?
Sure. So, first of all, as a kid, I was really attracted to games, obviously, like every kid. And Commodore 64 came out. It's like a dinosaur, but it came
Yeah,
out. And I was fascinated by the idea of this getting into this imagination world where it doesn't really exist, but it does exist. And, you sort of another definition for a great book, right? A great game. It's like you get into this amazing game, and this is why I fell in love with this world of software, the ability to simulate stuff, or even from game perspective, but later on simulate stuff and we'll talk about it, how to simulate stuff with AI.
yeah,
Um, and I kind of left it to the army. I actually had a service in the army, not connected to computers. And later on, I kind of when I started learning software engineering, one of my lecturers, her name is Ora Arbel. She was amazing, and she introduced me to the world of machine learning and AI. And in the beginning, it was around genetic algorithms. I don't know if you're familiar with that branch of AI, but it's a
yeah,
fascinating branch that mimics evolution in order to find creative solutions. And I kind of got into it and I said, wow, this is more powerful than anything I've seen so far, uh, and more inspiring than anything I've seen so far. And wow, it can like s- solve so many problems in the real life world that we're now solving with our heads, or trying to, and it demands some kind of letting go. So if you're talking about like the old school method, when you do algorithm, you're on top of the algorithm. It means at every location of the algorithm what it's going to do, almost like a rule based method where you know exactly what is, and therefore you have control on the outcomes. But in AI, it's a bit different because you have to let go and you have to understand that you're not going to understand how to solve the problem. Even if the AI understands how you're going to solve the problem, most likely you won't be able to understand what he understands. So reverse engineer his thoughts and his rule based thinking. You can't do that. You
yeah,
can get rhymes to what's more, which parameters are more important or less important,
yeah,
but if you think you're going to understand what's going on there, leave it alone. You're not going to understand what's going on there and
yeah,
how it actually solved the problem. What you have to do is to establish the environment in order to teach him what's right and what's wrong. And that's why we collect so many samples for AI, because this is how we teach him, by samples.
yeah.
And that was like
And in what
totally inspiring
topics?
for me. Sorry.
Could you describe what kind of topics did you use AI? So we started in the academy and then you went through a few startups.
Right. So I came with this almost understanding that wow, there's going to be like a magic wand here that is going to be playing a major role in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And obviously it happened. I actually started it at 2000, like started
Wow.
writing neural networks, maybe 30 neurons in C++. Python wasn't there, and it was magical for me. It was magical, and I said, "Wow, I'm gonna devote my knowledge in that direction, in understanding that there's a great career waiting for me that is gonna be very versatile in terms of the things that I can work on are endless, and I didn't want to be focused on one area at my life. I wanted to life is so rich. You want to taste a
Yeah.
lot, you want to understand a lot, and therefore I kind of embraced the opportunity very early in the game to understand that if I'm going to become an expert in this field, I'm going to be very valuable going on forward, and I'll also have the freedom of myself to select which topics are interesting or I have passion towards and which are not, and then I can also go in those directions and be a game changer. And I came with the idea, and I started at the beginning. I worked as an algorithm developer. I
Mm-hmm.
I was just algorithmic developer, writing
Mm-hmm.
algorithms, and at the beginning it was for sound recognition in small startup companies, sound
Mm-hmm.
recognition to understand different sounds and classify them to different groups.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, I moved into semiconductor industry to actually do single signal processing on X-ray reflection in order to understand the results and what they mean. And this was on
Mm-hmm.
wafer inspection. It's basically semiconductor industry.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, I moved into I kind of I also moved into asthma detection,
Medical.
medical into
Yeah.
asthma detection using sound of vibration and sounds to
Oh.
understand what is the severity of the asthma level, and this was really
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah.
And at a certain stage, I got tired of people telling me and
What to do?
yeah, what to do, or basically, don't do the business, do the stay
Yeah.
focused on the
Right.
algorithm because
Yeah.
you know how to do algorithms, but you don't know business. And I was that's not my, I know
Yeah.
business, like I can learn businesses, and obviously I didn't know business.
Like
So
any
I,
other new entrepreneur, they don't know,
right,
right?
right, right, right. And you also have to keep this mentality of not knowing, otherwise you can't learn.
Right.
So, I became an entrepreneur, and I went into factories in Israel, here in Israel, and basically I came with the understanding that maybe I can take all their experiments and get their products to a higher level by just analyzing their historical errors and experiments,
Yeah.
and the
It's within the line of industry or the logistics
No,
or
no, this was actually factories manufacturing plastics and also
mm,
armor protection, and they had
mm-hmm,
and like when you do a product, there are so many
mm-hmm.
combinations for a product. It's almost like a cake in terms of
Yeah.
complexity and the opportunity that you can build your product. But there is one cake that is much better than all the others in terms of stability, resilience, weight, etc. And
Yeah.
and machine learning is a great tool for that, because we as human beings can perceive maybe seven variables. I can maybe four variables at once. And
Maybe.
the idea of machine learning taking thousands of experiments and analyzing them, and also being able to analyze them and say, okay, this is what comes out of those experiments. This is the model that describes those experiments, and therefore you don't have to do any more experiment. You can use all your experiments to prevent using experiments in order to get your goal.
Yeah.
You did
It
enough
means
experiments.
that if I understand correctly, and you see, like two Israelis talk and they cut each other all the time.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, but let me see if I understood what you're saying. Let's take the history of the experiments you already done in order to predict what would be better in the future of your product line.
Correct, correct, very correct. And it happens also that you didn't do the exact experiment that you have to do now, but you have the five experiments that are around the area that you want to test, and maybe you can conclude from them already what will be the outcome, and save time, money, time to
Yeah.
market.
Yeah,
Um,
especially in manufacturing, where it's like most people, when they think about the product, they think about software. And when you're making some kind of a bug or you have a mistake, okay, we'll fix it. But in manufacturing, it will be very costly to make this kind of mistake, right? So it's not the same.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
Then I moved into a very vertical startup. At 2012, Irad Kunreich and myself established a startup that is about air quality measurements and air quality.
Mhm.
Irad is actually my partner at the time, and he was asthmatic, and he was concerned from running near the road and not knowing where there is bad air pollution or good air pollution. And he lived in Haifa, which is quite polluted in
Yeah.
Israel. So he had
Right.
this extreme consciousness to this area. And he came from the world of sensors. And it was the beginning of the IoT, maybe 2012. So Internet of Things just rised up. And we did a monitoring station. You can actually see it here.
Yeah.
Here. Here.
Yeah.
But it's a small monitoring station that allows you to monitor the air quality.
Yeah, I
So
see.
it's almost like a shoebox size device that has within it like maybe 8 parameters of air quality that you can. By the way, you can replace the structure of it, but the idea is to cover those 6 regulatory parameters that are being measured today. And this was a very ambitious project in the sense that it involved hardware, very complex hardware, by the way, and also the software to analyze all the points from the city or from the factory or from wherever in order to create a mesh and understand behaviors, like predicting when it will be the best time to go jogging, predicting when it will be where it will be the best place to buy your next real estate or house, or which
Yeah.
whatever you want, or where to call the fire department when there is a fire, or like
Mm-hmm.
alerts of leaks of gas. And the idea was amazing, astonishing, and we sold it to a company called Perkin-Elmer. We had an exit
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and actually machine learning was a huge part of our project because calibration was the name of the game. You had when you talk about air quality sensors, most of the air quality sensors today that are regulated are very huge and bulky. It means they're in the size of a container and in the
Mm-hmm.
price of around 100K dollars. So that means
Mm-hmm.
it's very expensive to buy one of these, and also to locate them in the city. It will probably be on the roof of a public building, and not necessarily on the
Mm-hmm.
street level where people can really identify their situation, and not on the roof.
Yeah.
And so we actually made a unit which is uh, much cheaper than the existing units, and we compensated the accuracy with algorithms, meaning that we gave the machine learning the task of making the hardware much better than it is by combining all the sensors together as an array, and also putting them
Mm-hmm.
alongside regulatory stations for a very long time in order to create a baseline that we can calibrate to. So that
Yeah.
is something that actually made much. It's one another great example of how machine learning doesn't have to be at the top of your project, but maybe it can be this small diamond that does the difference between accuracy, for example, and that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
was an amazing journey with my friend, and also I worked in Boston for 3 years, met some great
Mm-hmm.
people, kind of also studied, how did it happen, so I can do it again, and
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah.
what happened here, how did is it luck, is it not luck, and
Yeah.
I'm still learning, by the way. So
You should. We all still learn all the time, right? Which is
and
very important. And then after that, you went into this current startup that you were
so
in.
after that, I had some projects for a while doing AI, and then I actually started another startup, which is my current startup, Amphorica. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Amphorica is about and bringing AI into logistics and supply chain, and to companies that don't have the capability of embracing AI. And we try to do it as simple as possible for these companies who are not in the game, and are struggling to get into the game. And we
Yeah.
found out that in the logistics sector, and also when you look at, I'm not talking about companies who are tier one, I'm talking about tier two, three, and so on, maybe small and medium companies even, that are struggling to embrace AI, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
fat in there that can be optimized in their
Yeah.
operation, in the way they predict how the future will be, in the way they schedule their workloads and their resources, and how they monetize it. And in the way they price their work. It's a very challenging topic. How do you price?
Yeah.
How do you estimate your costs?
Yeah.
So these are, and we are enablers for these companies. Some of our work is around giving them tools like ML ops
Hmm.
tools that will easily bring them on board into current tools. And some of them are projects that we have to get into their data and extract those e- either predictions or either insights that can be very valuable for these companies.
Yeah.
And the great opportunity here is that there's so many companies out there that don't have AI within their
Yeah.
organization. And I'll go even further. There's so many that didn't get out of Excel. They're still
Yeah.
running their companies in Excel or Google Sheets, and my
Yeah.
heart is with them. That they've been struggling for ages
Yeah.
and they're doing the hard labor, but most of them don't have enough time to even go on board those new tools, and we're seeing a situation where a lot of them bring in-house AI into their teams. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm seeing it more and more. And even when you bring somebody who's AI specialist into your team, sometimes it doesn't have the soil to grow on. So it means
Yeah.
you need some kind of an ecosystem in order to inhabit those. So even if you have a great prediction, somebody has to get that prediction and do something with that. So
Yeah.
it's a challenging time, but at the same time, it's bringing probably a lot of optimization and I call it basically peace of mind to these
Yeah.
companies in terms of tranquility and the ability to get on top of business and also be optimized and
Yeah.
and one of the things we heard from these companies over and over that they can't sleep at night basically.
Yeah, like with these very more, I would say, traditional types of businesses that are really struggling to go and to get into these kinds of understanding about the business because they're always like there are fires and they're distinguishing fire all the time. And if you're doing it with Excel or with very old systems, it's very hard, and there are lots of competition out there, and the big how do you call them, tier one, the big enterprises, they have all of that, and it's really hard to compete.
Right, and they have all of that, but you have to remember that also they are big and bulky. So therefore,
Yeah,
if you're a medium player and you have those tools, most chances that you'll be more effective than the big
yeah,
companies because you're still
yeah,
agile and you can move fast and so I think it's the democratization of those tools is so vital, and
yeah,
we live in a great area where everyone is allowed to touch those tools, and
yeah.
I pray and wish that it will remain this way because it's going to be unfair otherwise.
So what do you think is like the worst case scenario, like Microsoft, Google taking it all? This is how you see it?
Well, as long as we're talking about commercial companies, I'm quite relaxed. I think that the most main important task is the politicians, and
Mm,
regulating this new branch that arises, is a highly important task, and there is a good reason why everybody shouts for that, um,
yeah,
because the companies are busy doing money, basically, right? But
of course.
but
That's
but
their job. Yeah,
right, that's their job, right? And but basically, I think the most heavy duty and responsibility is going to be on top of the politicians or us citizens who choose the politicians. If you go like
yeah,
step beyond, but we have to
yeah,
understand that it's a very very powerful tool, and like dynamite, it could be used for building roads or for destruction,
yeah.
and and it's
This reminds me of what Sam Altman, which is in Tel Aviv right now, I got pictures, said that he would like the U.S. government to be like hands-on and bring
yeah,
more regulations to it. And the smaller companies said, okay, it's a way for them to dominate because not many companies would be able to live up to these regulations. What do you think about it?
Well, I think we all, as human beings, should be careful, and we're playing with fire, basically, and we have to
Yeah,
understand it very, very deeply. And when you think about the Big Brother vision, it's actually closer than ever in terms of capabilities. I'm talking
yeah,
about capabilities. So I
yeah,
think as a human race, we need to take responsibility and understand that we are dealing with fire here.
yeah.
And I'm optimistic, by the way. I'm optimistic. I think that,
So what would be the best case? We talked about the worst case, okay, the big
the best
brother.
case will be that people will work less. That's
And
what I think. I think.
how do you imagine that people work less and how do they
Well,
get
well,
money for what they need?
already Bill Gates mentioned the idea of robots paying taxes for people who are laid out or because of
Hmm.
those. And I think it's a good direction. It's a good direction. We're seeing the GPT coming out and the new tools coming out, and it's inevitable that people will be replaced by computers, and software developers, you're the first ones. If you,
Yeah,
if you didn't get it till now, and so on, many professional are going home, in terms of, or going home, or people are not willing to will not be willing to pay so much for that like they did so far.
yeah,
And and we have to understand that it's a process that will happen if we want it or not.
yeah.
And I
But what
think
you're
that's
saying about robots taxes, it's like it's taxing these huge like companies like Microsoft that owns OpenAI that has ChatGPT. They would need to pay for it, or I don't know, Google with Wired or
right, right.
whoever.
But well, we have to find a way to provide people with
Yeah, of
salaries
course.
that they didn't get, and with the ability to live respectfully. And I think that's the main point. Like, if we don't understand that that's the main point, that like well-being for the people, then it won't work, or it will be in the shape that we don't want it to be. So that's why I'm talking about the politicians. We have to understand that a lot of people are going home soon,
Yeah,
soon, and we have to take care of them, uh, and make sure that they
yeah,
have enough time for their lives, for their well-being. And it's hard to imagine, but I
yeah,
think we have to consider the fact that we don't need to work as hard as we did in the last decades.
yeah,
um, it doesn't have to be this way. We can probably wake up a bit later and come back to work and spend time with our kids or with our loved ones, dedicate time to arts. And but now that these tools came out, I think they can liberate us instead of the opposite.
yeah, enslave
And
us.
exactly. And when you look at
Yeah,
how much time it took to pick up cotton once, and how much it takes now, there's kind of liberation, has to be kind of liberation within this equation, right? It used to take like hundreds of people to to pick up cotton, and now it takes like 10 minutes with a huge machine. I think something has to translate into here with the same translation,
yeah,
but in the mind of worrying about the people and not necessarily about the robots. They'll be okay, the
yeah.
robots.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Microsoft or Google, by the way.
Right, right.
I just have to say that I know if you saw the discussions in the, I think it was in the Senate that Sam Altman went and talked to them. And it's not that I don't respect politicians that much, but it seems that they did not really understand the
Right,
topic well
right,
enough, to think about it, not to regulate is the next level, just to understand what is the meaning of it. And
right.
why is this, I know he's 38 years old, talking to them as if it's like, I don't know, a prophet, right?
So we need younger leaders. That's another thing, right? We need,
Yeah,
and I think most of the talented people don't go to be leaders today, which
of
is
course,
sad.
that's for sure. We
That's
know
quite sad,
that.
because we need the best leaders out there, not necessarily the best CEOs. We need the best leaders for the politician part, and that's exactly to protect the people from this unfair competition. And
Yeah.
it's an unfair competition. If anyone doesn't understand that, he has a problem today. But
Yeah,
it's
I
an
think
unfair competition.
that most people don't really understand what it involves in order to build this kind of a tool. So you need, like, it's not another startup that succeeded. You need, first, you need lots of resources and talent and computational power and data, and it's lots of work. Not everyone could do it, right? And funding, of course.
Right,
So,
right, right. And also, I think the more now, I believe we have maybe 10 years of great opportunities for entrepreneurs, like amazing opportunities. Everywhere you throw a stone and you put AI on top of it, it'll probably grow.
yeah,
And it's astonishing also to see the amount of tools that entrepreneurs have today. It's almost like, you're going to Disneyland. You have so many tools, and they're getting so much better so quickly. With
yeah,
I have to say that now the plugins came out in OpenAI.
yeah. Like now, it's like 2 weeks old. It's like old news.
Right, right. And I was playing all weekend with those capabilities, like, and my kids see me like, wow, amazing,
Wow,
and then wow, wow,
wow.
Dad, but what is it? And they look at it and, but this doesn't
Yeah,
look cool. Uh,
yeah. For them, it doesn't.
but but I think the tools are improving so quickly, and so we're talking about entrepreneurs, it's almost like being in heaven, and at the same time, everybody is in heaven, right? So
Yeah,
the
it's
competition
crowded. Heaven
the
is crowded.
competition excels very quickly. It's very hard to prove that you're special,
Yeah,
because everything is democratic, and well, now you have the language models out there, which are really helping you out in anything, in anything.
yeah,
It makes you just a better at what you are. Doesn't matter
yeah,
what you do. And let's not exaggerate. Sorry, I think that we still, the tools are not there yet. By the way, it's not
And
like
how do you
perfect.
see that? You mean
It
you mean like specializing into a certain
right.
direction, not just
I mean
asking
that if
something
I if
general?
I throw a stone and I decide to do something with AI with ChatGPT, and I start to, for example, I'm doing a lot of software development with it. It's
Yeah,
actually writing me for 1 year
like
software development.
co-pilot.
No, I actually use the ChatGPT itself.
ChatGPT itself.
Yeah,
Oh.
to create code. And now you have the Notable. I don't know if
Mhm.
you know, it's a very strong plugin that you can also do software with it. And and I have to say that it's overwhelming. It's amazing, but at the same time, you still need me or somebody special to say, okay, you're not in the right direction, or well, that's great, or oh, that's bullshit, that's totally bullshit. And
Yeah,
it happens a lot. It happens a lot.
yeah,
But with a bit of an imagination, you can understand that I can be replaced as well as the leader of the conversation, or the
yeah.
uh, or the
It-
contributor of the insights. Or And there's already there's a great open source called AutoGPT. I don't know if you
mhm.
heard about it, but
Yeah.
go and take a look. It's something that you install on your computer. It's an open source project, but it basically eliminates you as a question asker out of the game. So it gives you the ability to actually, a bot talks to a bot, and
Mm.
replaces you as the supervisor,
Yeah.
so to say. And this is an amazing advancement. And obviously we didn't talk about the art part, which is amazing, like when we talk about Dali.
Yeah.
and and
A mid
and
journey.
they used to say that AI is not about art, it's about numeric and about, but
Yeah.
now everybody understand that it can mimic art great, and also create things that are inspirational and touching your soul. And
Yeah.
when you talk about music, OpenAI has a great project for music. Go on and listen
Yeah.
to the
Google has one too. Yeah.
and this is amazing, like almost like and so therefore I think, and by the way, let's just talk a little bit about the word artificial, because I really want to talk about it, and it's a bit spiritual, but let's stay
Hmm.
stay on this one.
Sure.
Now, I don't believe that there is anything artificial in this world. Like, it's a bit cocky to think like that,
Hmm.
because we are part of nature as
Yeah.
much as smart as we think we are, or and to put the word artificial on something that we as part of nature created, mm, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So you
uh,
would say that this is an intelligence, and you wouldn't use the word artificial before it. But how would you define
I think it, I
a
think it's
human
natural.
intelligence
I
which is
think it's
separate from
natural.
this kind?
I think it's part of nature as much as we are part of nature,
Mhm.
and it's something spiritual. But I really believe that this is it has its own existence, and to call something artificial is to be very, are you God that you're calling it artificial? Like, who are you to call it artificial if you're a human being who is created from nature? So, and I'll go out of this spiritual discussion, but but to me it allowed to be here. That's what I'm saying. It allowed to be here. It's not like it has its right to be exist. The
Yeah. And
this wisdom, or this, like, what do you call it? Whatever you artificial intelligence. But yeah.
yeah. So what would you say about people are getting really, really afraid and anxious even about the result? And like people like Elon Musk said that you should stop it and to maybe slow it down, or even
Mm,
half
mm,
a year just think about it.
I think
What
he's
would
right.
you what do
I
you
think
think
he's
about?
right. I think he's right. And going back to the politicians and the ability to at least go and mitigate it, try to mitigate it in some way, but not just watch it grow and explode from the side and not do anything with it. I'm not saying you should stop it like Italy did. I think Italy stopped ChatGPT for a while.
Yeah,
I don't think, you know like, I don't think that's the direction, but definitely you should think about ethics, and start to talk about it and discuss about it and mitigate it. I think he's right. I think he's
yeah.
right.
I feel that it's like in next year we have election in the US, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure that when it like hits everybody, it's there. They will see it there, with the ads, with the commercial, with the social, with everything related to that would be so obvious that
Right,
what was like back then, and we had a discussion, is like the Russians and Facebook and all that. It's nothing compared to what the tools both sides would have in a year. They already have it. They just use it in a year, right?
right, right. I know
So
what my end result would look like, if my wishful thinking, that we will all have more time to do the things we like, and not necessarily to be obligated to this rat race that we're kind
yeah,
of living today. uh to do more music, to do more, and for me, I imagine a liberation process where we
yeah,
stop going in this crazy circle of running after our tails, and hopefully work less, be more with our kids, with our loved ones, and
yeah.
resonate better. I hope that this is the direction.
I truly do hope. Like in Hebrew, we have a saying like from your mouth to God, right?
Mhm.
More or
Amen.
less.
Amen.
Amen. So let's go back to challenges. Like it sounds like everything is so easy, but AI is not that easy. So
Mm,
what would be a challenge for someone implementing an AI algorithm or a product related to
mhm.
AI?
So obviously, data is the first one. Usually, but by the way, not all algorithms are dealing with data. So if you have to schedule your do scheduling for anything, like scheduling for
Mhm.
your workers or for anything, you don't really need data, right? You just need to do the number of workers, the number of slots that are needed, and the missions, and it's kind of a search of the best combination search. So not
Yeah,
necessarily you need data for these algorithms,
yeah.
planning, and
But
these kinds
most
of.
most people would not say it's like a pure AI if you don't use data.
Right,
It's like
right,
an
and
algorithm,
right,
right?
right,
More or less.
and right. But when we talk about, like, things like, predict the future, classification problems of medical stuff, or anything that you want to replace the poor performance of a human being with something that is much more stronger and quicker, and also learned on much more data, then that's where, it you need a lot of data, and you need also to know how to build this data in order not to lie to the AI about how the world
Yeah.
looks like. So
Yeah.
you need to present the real life problem in the same way that you build your data set.
Yeah.
If you
And
have
most people don't understand, I think, how complex it is to use data. That okay, we have lots of data, just use it. You need to clean it. You need to form it. You need to, I know, to have the right structure of the data. All of that. It's not that easy. Just take it. You have a database. Let's pour it into
like
ChatGPT.
in estimation, and I think it is changing because of the tools for pre-processing, but in estimation, data cleansing and pre-processing would take 80% of your effort, roughly.
Wow, 80. I didn't think
80%.
it
I
would
mean,
be
the
80.
algorithms themselves, they're built, and when you run a neural network, for example, once you have the data, it's quite simple to run it. Or I'm not saying that there's no complexities there, but the hardest part is to align the data cleansing, the cleaning, and this usually takes a lot of time. And also, when you have to take a lot of data from a lot of multiple data lakes, let's call them,
Yeah,
then it takes also a lot of time to align them together and make sure that you don't do mistakes. Because if you do mistakes, they will resonate in the model later on.
yeah,
So,
and you will not always understand where it comes
right,
from,
you
right?
will not understand.
You will not.
You
Okay,
will not
okay.
understand and when you work with deep neural networks, obviously you're not going to understand what's going on, and it's almost like a mystic process, like a black
Yeah,
box process that happens, and you can understand by testing it before you release it. But what you can do is put on top of it limitations. If you say that, if something comes out of the algorithm and it's not appropriate or something like that, or then
yeah,
don't put it.
and
So you
present.
can you put your own logic on top of this complexity,
Yeah,
but you can't do that. But basically, you have to understand that you don't understand how the neural network thinks,
yeah.
which
Which
is
is
amazing.
really
Right?
it's hard. Just it's like being a bit humble, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
say,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I think humbleness is the word. And when we talk about challenges, by the way, the biggest challenge is to release, to let go. Like, and when you come to a big company and they say go to talk to the chief scientist. Now if he is tight and tries to control the algorithm that he's written, it'll be very hard to work with him. Very, very hard. I mean, you have to understand that you don't understand, otherwise it's going to be suffering.
yeah. I think it's related to the point of trust. Would they trust your solution, and are they willing to trust it? Because
Right,
they want to trust their own experience, skills, what they built till now. They hold their like understanding of the world, and especially their expertise really like close to their heart. It's like this is what I do. Will
right,
your machine be better than me? That's what you're saying. I'm
right.
here for I don't know 20 years. I'm in this factory, and now you're coming, and it's really hard to create this trust with these machines.
So in the beginning, it's almost like it's not even like you're not talking about something specific, or you're talking about emotions, right? In the
Right.
beginning, it's very emotional in the beginning, and I think nowadays it's different, by the way, because it's so popular. But when I'm 10 years ago, when I went into a company and said we can optimize you, like just let us optimize the algorithm, there was this
Yeah.
immediate objection, like, who are you that you can come here? We've been working on that 10 years, we've been so much who
Yeah.
are you that obviously I tell them it's not me, I'm just going to help you. And by the way, if we can cooperate there, your domain knowledge can make it much better, by the way. So there's a stage where the domain knowledge is so important that you need these people to be on your side. Otherwise, and if they're on your side, then you can get into really, really amazing stuff, because obviously domain knowledge helps. It helps, I mean, but if you
Yeah.
work with the AI and you understand, like, let's say you give it like 100 samples and you understand why it didn't choose this sample, then it may help very much to adjust the AI to be better. Or
Yeah.
so domain knowledge is super important, by the way.
Yeah, I
Super
think it's
important.
very similar to what you mentioned that when you write code, still someone needs to say, okay, this is a
Right.
stupid part of what you're saying, and I know how to fix it, or you should take into consideration that.
Exactly. So basically, my suggestion to everybody who is afraid of it is, first of all, to if you can't beat it, join it. If you can't beat it, join it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Okay.
And in my imagination, I always imagine myself going on top of the pile. You know, instead of going inside the pile and starting to um and that means, work with the tools that are out there, but make something with those tools that haven't been done. Don't
Yeah.
replace the tools that are out there, but just use those. And usually what happens is there are amazing tools that are coming out every time.
Great.
Combination of tools can be more amazing, like, so as an entrepreneur, I'm trying to think about the Lego parts, not necessarily to go into the small Lego parts, but take those big construction, like already things that are constructed, and do with them together some kind of a combination which hasn't been
Yeah.
addressed until now, or it's a niche that nobody touches because it's hard to get there, or something that is painful. But I
Yeah.
think if you join it, and you also try to use those tools and not to replace them, not don't fight with it, on you have no chance there.
Yeah.
but
When you're
but go-
saying these tools, are you talking like I'm trying to understand? Are you talking about should I use a ChatGPT or a open source or
yeah.
write myself my own code? Or you're saying there are so many other tools or problems you could solve with these tools?
So I don't want to limit it into any hierarchy. I think it appears in every hierarchy along the road, even the big ones, the small ones, or but the idea is to think out of the box, and
Mhm.
and use and leverage those tools. So if you talk about ChatGPT, yeah, definitely use those, even plugins or tools, or automate your own solution in order to make somebody's life easier, at, and make it cheaper for him to use it. Or and there are so many today. You just have to, I guess, as an entrepreneur, I learned few things. First of all, my ideas are usually not that good. My ideas.
Okay, that's a good start.
So, the expectation that your idea is going to be like the winning idea, I think you have to let go from that as well. And 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 I see how much it blocks entrepreneurs from seeing ideas, basically, just because it's not their idea. So
Right.
so I think that going out of the of and scouting for this idea is an essential part. Even if you're in the startup and you think you know what you're doing, you always have to open up your mind, and
Mhm.
think about the maybe some client that you're going to meet next week, and not some nobody. And I'm not, will tell you the idea, will tell you the pain that he's suffering from, and this is the so I think letting go of the fact that you're going to invent the idea is super major important. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
locked in your ego, and you can't get good ideas. Um, so so the one recommendation from my experience, that
Yeah.
most of the good ideas won't come from yourself. They'll come to you from conversations, from good people that give it to you, from whatever it is.
Yeah. It's
um,
it's very related to what we were usually saying, that you need to be in love with the problem and not with the solution. You
right.
just want to really solve it. And how would you solve it? By being into the problem and going and talking to people, and then you understand what you really need to solve actually, and how it's like derived from there.
And I have to say that I'm in the game as well, so I don't know much more than you are. I'm also trying to find, like, the best ideas all the time, and how to, and the challenges. If we go back to the challenges, so a lot of the challenges are also, the embracement of AI, of your clients, of your, and I think it's getting much, much, much better. I think now the
Yeah.
situation okay, how are we going to do that, instead of are we going to do that? Like
Yeah.
I think everybody wants to do it. The FOMO is very strong. You can feel it everywhere, and therefore for me it helps a lot. If you think about 10 years ago, where I had to convey people that this will really help them, and
Yeah.
now I don't have to. The discussion now is how do we do that, and how do we get there as fast as possible.
Yeah.
um,
Which is good.
Another
Which
challenges
is,
is that it don't necessarily work all the time, and you have to embrace that as well. And
yeah.
and feasibility tests are so important. I always compare it to throwing a stone on a wall and seeing how high is the wall. Is it like 2 meters high, or is it 1 kilometer high? Like, and you have to understand that not everything is solvable. And when you do that, please get to the situation where it's not solvable, and you know it as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So kill the dream if you can as quick as possible. It'll save a lot of headache and pain. And some things just don't work. They don't converge. They don't work. And the idea that AI can solve everything is not true. Um, so it depends on, some are objective. There's no solution. Doesn't matter what you do.
Mhm.
And some are subjective. You don't have the enough data to solve that. Or so understanding feasibility is a major step in this area. And as soon as you can do some kind of a POC to prove to yourself that it works, or prove to yourself that it doesn't work, it's very important in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because it's
and
very
it's
confusing.
different.
Everybody's like, thinks it can do everything, and it's not the
Yeah.
case. It's not. It's still not the
Yeah.
case.
How do you see it's different from creating a POC in software? How is like building an algorithm or an AI or this neural network different than building a part of a POC of software? What's the difference?
So there's and obviously in software there's also some portion of unknown, but I think in AI there it's much bigger, and therefore usually it needs confidence from both sides, from my side and from the client side, to see that it's worth working on that. So let's say the customer has this huge data set of all the pricing points that it gave in the future, and those who were rejected and those who weren't rejected. Now
Hmm.
I can look at the data and tabulary and do some statistics, but until I don't run a model that will try to predict, if I can predict it, it'll be very hard for me to come back to the customer and say it's going to work. So
Yeah.
it demands also humbleness, like we talked about,
Hmm.
and the ability to, and openness, also the ability to take the data, work on that, and then come back to the customer and say, okay, I think we got a good, this is the great soil for AI. It's going to work. At least from the data you gave me, I have good feeling that it's going to work, and we can start we can go. And
Yeah.
usually the way to start is to start with this intermediate stage where both sides don't know if it'll work, humbly.
Yeah.
And 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 I think it's a great way to start relationships. And the
Yeah.
unknown, and I think if you are too cocky and you come with you're saying, okay, I'm for sure solving it, I think the effect if you're not solving it is severe.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think that it's a bit different to understand that what you get is as you said, unknown, because most people will say, okay, you have a problem, you have this tool, and you have a solution in the end. So I'll give you the data, you will just do whatever you're doing, and then you'll tell me, yeah, ta-da, how it is. And it doesn't work this way, especially because each question is be different, and I guess each of your clients are have different data, and they have different systems, and they have different problems even sometimes. And then what you're doing, I guess at the beginning at least, is more like a service to customize everything for them, and afterwards they could use the system, right? Something
Right,
like
and
that.
and and you're right, and also we're talking about the first customer, but the second may be very similar, and I have the confidence to already wrap
Hmm.
it up as a tool and sell it as a tool. But
Hmm.
so the beginning is there's a lot of unknown. But once you find out that you help to this company, that probably there are 10 companies who are very similar to that company, and you can help them. So
Yeah.
risk
So the
mitigation is something that you can do along the way. But once you understand and productize this activity, then that's a magic, basically, right? That's the magic
yeah,
for me as an entrepreneur. uh, you pass this obstacle of proving the feasibility, you wrap it out as a product, and then it works. That's
yeah.
work.
Yeah, I think that in general, when you're an entrepreneur, you have like open questions, and you're starting there with the unknown. And if you have luck and other stuff, you will get to something which is valuable.
Amen.
Amen.
Luck is
So
amazing. You have to embrace luck as well, and I embrace luck.
yeah, for sure. So actually, I think we went through about third of the questions that I wanted to ask. So maybe
Amazing.
we should have another discussion afterwards because I have so many other things that we didn't get to. So maybe we should have another one.
Absolutely.
And I
I'd
want
love
to
to.
thank you and thank you for your time. And we'll reschedule another one. That's for sure.
Beautiful. I did. It was a pleasure, and it
Pleasure
was a
talking
pleasure
to you.
talking to you, and I enjoyed it very much.
Me too. And how could people reach you and your company and ask questions if they want?
LinkedIn, amphorica.com. My email,
Yeah.
raviv@amphorica.com. Uh,
Wow.
and feel free
So
to.
thank
I try to stay humble.
yeah, that's good. So thank you, Loviv. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we will do it again. And to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya.
Bless you, Adi. Thank you.
Bye bye.